So here's what I've been thinking about this week. This week of March was always a big week when my children were growing up because we were Irish, and on St. Patrick's Day, the leprechauns would come. I don't know if the leprechauns would come to your house or not, but they were devilish little things, and we would get up in the morning and every chair would be tipped over and all the drawers open and toilet paper would be thrown all over the place. It was a mess. And when my oldest son came home from kindergarten, he told me that the way to catch them, he had learned at kindergarten, was with a glass of whiskey. So we tried every year, we would put out a glass of whiskey for the leprechauns. And I don't know, every morning on St. Patrick's Day, the whiskey would be gone, but there would be an empty glass with no leprechauns in it. But we also belonged to a parish that was very Irish, and we would have a special Irish Mass for St. Patrick's Day on an evening, Sunday evening. And they would bring in an Irish group from Chicago with a singer, and it was just beautiful. And we sang all Irish hymns, and it was wonderful. But this parish also had a large Italian contingent in it, and pretty soon they started to say, well, what about us? Because you might not know this, but St. Joseph's Day is on March 19th, and that's a big Italian holiday, and they serve a big thing called a St. Joseph's table, which is a table just laden with so much food. And because it always falls in the middle of Lent, you would get a special dispensation that you could eat meat on St. Joseph's Day. So this was a big celebration. So our parish started hosting a St. Joseph table on the 19th of March. So we had these two big saint days in my house when my kids were growing up that my parish was a big part of. And now, as an adult, Scott has started a Lenten practice called Lent Madness, which is kind of a March Madness basketball thing, but applied to saints. And every day there's two saints, and they go against each other, and you can vote. And the idea is by Holy Week, we come down with the saint of the year. And so I learn a lot about saints every year because he's doing this March Madness thing. But that got me thinking as well that these are all fantastical saints, right? These are all saints that have these amazing stories attached to their lives. But there are so many saints in our lives that are just ordinary people like we are. And one of the beauties of the Presbyterian tradition is that we do believe that we are the sainthood of all believers. We call it priesthood, but it's the same thing, really. We are all part of that great cloud of witnesses of saints. And so I would encourage you to think back about who are some of the ordinary saints in your lives. I can say right away, of course, my dear spiritual director, Sister Teresa, but also Mary Walton and Bill Flaherty and Maggie Menard and people that I had the faith passed on to me, Bud Ryan as a kid. There are all kinds of people that were saints in my lives that really the purpose of a saint is to point the way to God and show us what to do. So anyway, I also would like to show you, this is our only picture of a saint in here. This is St. George, and he's kind of an interesting figure. He's very from the early centuries and supposedly was a Roman soldier in Diocletian's army. And if you know anything about Diocletian, he was the last one to really torture Christians. And when it was found out that George was a Christian, well, you can imagine the fate that he met. It wasn't so nice. And then we also have this beautiful St. Bridget's cross. She was a saint from Ireland, supposedly a bishop, which is kind of an interesting legend story about her. But she is an old female saint from Ireland and has a wonderful history as well in Celtic Christianity. But anyway, these aren't the kind of saints I'm talking about today. It's folks like all of you who do all the great mission work at PCWS, who pass the faith on to the next generations. But I encourage you this week to think about who are those saints in your lives. And then I'll see you on Sunday. Bye, folks.